Hello, everyone, and welcome to Furry Movies, a look back, a look forward, the 2023 edition. I am Rod O'Reilly, the Ed Otter of Infernation.com. I'm also a member of the ALAA, which every year brings us the Ursa Major Awards, basically the People's Choice Awards for furry fandom. We're looking to be basically the equivalent of the Hugo Awards as presented by the World Science Fiction Society every year. So we're going to take a look at some of the furriest movies of 2023, and then we'll look into the future to look at some of the furry films that we have to look forward to in 2024. To begin with, we have 24 movies that came to our way in 2023, beginning with Epic Tales, which was a European film originally called Argonauts. It tells the adventures of a mouse on the high seas and his friends who are along not necessarily all willingly. The Amazing Maurice was also a European film. Originally came out in the UK. It's based on a story from Terry Pratchett's Discworld. It did not get an American release until January of 2023. So I am counting it for that here. All I can say is it's a very nice film and the rats are wonderful characters. Do see it if you haven't already. Unicorn Wars came out from Spain. It's described as, and I quote, religious and bigoted teddy bears versus environmentalist unicorns. It is a very strange film. But oh my goodness, has it been getting lots and lots of attention from lots and lots of award nominations. Then things get big, of course. Super Mario Brothers. Everybody was talking about this before it even came out, and that helped it to get just tremendous box office. Chris Pratt as Mario himself, and Jack Black as the villain. Both of them having way too much fun, and both of them have gotten lots of mileage out of this ever since. And speaking of lots of mileage, we have been waiting for this one for a long, long time. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which, oh, thank goodness, focused mostly on Rocket. Okay? This was his story. It even said so. And what can I say? We will remember you, Lila, and the rest of Batch 89. You know what I'm talking about. Rally Road Racers was interesting in that it was a co-production of the United States, the United Kingdom, and the United Arab Emirates. Basic story, a slow loris has to become a champion race driver in order to save his village from being taken over by villainous corporations. Transformers Rise of the Beasts was admittedly, I think, a bit disappointing, especially for those of us who were fans of the original Transformers Beast Wars TV series. We got excited for it and then find out that the Beasts forms are hardly in it. And Optimus Primal is pretty much the only character who had any lines. Otherwise, it's your basic Transformers movie. Elemental from Pixar was one of those, what they call sleeper hits. Okay, it didn't do well at the box office at all when it first came out, and everybody was jumping up and down about it. And then a strange thing happened. It kept making roughly the same amount at the box office for a very long period of time. And by the end of the summer, guess what? It had done very well for itself around the world. That can still happen, and it's very nice when it does. This is certainly a unique concept because I have never previously seen a film about anthropomorphic states of matter. But here we are. Nimona, the rescued film. You've probably heard the story. The graphic novel Nimona, about a shape-shifting character, was being worked on by Blue Sky Studios. Blue Sky Studios was bought by Disney Studios as part of a larger deal, and Blue Sky Studios was shut down. So Nimona then became an orphan project. Well, Annapurna Productions, who are mostly known for their games, decided to pick it up with help from Netflix. They completed the movie, they put it out on Netflix, and guess what? Everyone went bananas. It is an excellent film. I highly recommend it for everyone. Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken, had a hard life, both as a character and as a movie. The story of a teenage girl who is in fact a member of a seagoing species who is living in disguise in a little human seaside town, who is forced to drop her disguise when the town is invaded by evil mermaids. Yes, that's the story. But it's a DreamWorks film. It didn't get the greatest marketing, and it did not do tremendously well at the box office, which had a lot of people worried about DreamWorks at the time. But it's a good film. It really is. It's a lot of fun. I do recommend seeing it. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem is basically a love letter. Seth Rogen and his friends wanted to create a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie that they felt was as exciting and fun and silly and strange as the ones that they had seen when they were younger, including even the Saturday morning TV series. So they did that. And they created a film based on looking like it was created by children's crayon drawings, which they then animated in the modern, snappy animation style that's made popular by the Spider-Man movies and such. And it did very well for itself. Mavka, the forest song, came out of Ukraine, interestingly enough. It's a fantasy film, a legendary film about forest spirits and fighting against destructive powers. Most of the characters are more humanoid, but there's an awful lot of anthropomorphics in the background. Anthropomorphic animals, anthropomorphic trees, anthropomorphic rocks. It's a very naturalist film. The Monkey King, I should say, the latest version of The Monkey King. This one produced by Stephen Chow, who is, of course, best known for his films Kung Fu Hustle and Shaolin Soccer. Unlike many, many, many of the interpretations of Journey to the West that have been created over the years, including by Mr. Stephen Chow, he did some live-action versions, this was not actually the story of Journey to the West. This was more of an origin story for the Monkey King character himself, how he initially started his war with heaven and his attempt to become the greatest of all time, and how that worked out. They move on to the story of Journey to the West later on. Strays is a live-action film with animated faces, which has become popular over the years, starring Will Ferrell and Jamie Foxx as stray dogs. Will Ferrell is absolutely devoted to his human master, despite the fact that his human master abuses him. When he is kicked out for the last time, and his stray friends can convince him exactly what has happened to him, Will Ferrell's character decides to go find his master and damage him physically. This makes it sound much, much more serious than it actually is. This is a very silly, very scatological, very adult-oriented film, and a lot of people had a lot of fun with it. Ernest and Celestine 2, A Trip to Gibberisha. Long title. Basically, every mouse girl's favorite big bear decides to go home and bring Celestine with him. There he finds that his homeland, for some strange reason, has banned all forms of music. As somebody who's rather fond of music himself, he finds this to be not a very good situation and decides to do something about it, of course, with Celestine's help. Baby Shark's Big Movie. I first heard this announced and I could hear half the world going, "No!" That earworm had worked itself around the planet several times at that point, the song that you could not get away from if you had anyone under the age of 10. You knew the song Up, Down, and Sideways, okay? So they decided to make a movie about it, and guess what? It's a perfectly fine, silly children's animated film. Paw Patrol, the mighty movie. What can you say about Paw Patrol? If you go into any store anywhere, you will see 8 million tie-in products specifically for Paw Patrol. They are an empire of merchandising, and I think children everywhere know about them. So this is the latest Paw Patrol movie where a meteorite lands on Earth, and guess what? Suddenly the Paw Patrol have superpowers, so they're able to take on even bigger villains. Under the Boardwalk is another rescued film of a sort. It was produced by Paramount. It's the story of, you guessed it, a bunch of crabs living on the Jersey Shore. Some are from the ocean, some are from the boardwalk itself, and they have territorial wars with lots of musical numbers involved. Paramount didn't really seem to know what to do with this film, and they released it to their streaming service literally with no promotion whatsoever. It simply came out one day. And guess what? People saw it and said, it's a fun film. Trolls band together. Again, we're stretching things a little bit, no pun intended, with regards to anthropomorphism, but there are a lot of non-human and even animal-type characters in the background in this. And of course, you just have to say something about a film where almost all of the production design looks like the whole film was cut and sewn together out of fabric. Leo surprised a lot of us. Adam Sandler's latest movie. It turns out that he was working so hard on Leo, that's the reason why he was not able to voice Dracula for Hotel Transylvania 4. And a lot of people looked at this film and said he made the right choice. This is a fun film about an elderly lizard living in a classroom terrarium who decides to impart his wisdom to a group of fifth graders when he thinks that he is dying. And a lot of people really like this one. Wish. Ah, Disney. I'll be honest with you myself. I thought that Wish was perfectly fine. Now, having said that, realize that with what Wish was intended to be and what it was supposed to be, perfectly fine is kind of a letdown. It was functional. It was nice. There are some fun characters, some fun songs, but it didn't quite have the oomph that I think people expected of it given what they had been told it was supposed to represent. Chicken Run, Dawn of the Nugget. We've been waiting a long time for this one, and it finally came about thanks to Netflix. We have the chickens now living on their paradise island, and our hero and our heroine get a new baby chick whom they have to raise, who becomes very curious about the outside world, almost dangerously so, because she may accidentally give the outside world reason to come investigate the chicken's paradise. It's notable that after so long a time, there's largely a different cast for this one, but from what everyone said, it had about as much fun as the first one did. Hidden Dragon is a Chinese film that we didn't know a lot about before it turned up, and I'm not even certain exactly where it is streaming, but it is out there streaming somewhere. You have an undersea kingdom where dragons and various sea creatures live, and suddenly one day, one of the most horrific characters of all time, a human being, shows up in their realm, and everyone's panicking, except for this one young dragon fellow who thinks that it may be worthwhile to make friends with this strange young human girl. Who's kidding anybody? the large part of the reason why people notice this is that young dragon fellow is so cute. And finally, Migration, this year's Illumination film. We have a family of ducks living happily in their pond until the family convinces their rather nervous father that it might be worthwhile for once to actually migrate and check out some of the rest of the world. So they do, and accidentally wind up in a very busy city with a great many perils that they must overcome as a family together. So there you have it. That was the films of 2023. Remember, nominations for the Ursa Major Awards are open now. So, moving forward, we have a new feature. Since we're looking ahead now at 2024, we thought we'd take a look at some of the classic furry movies that are having anniversaries in 2024. Going way, way back, celebrating 60 years, besides myself, we have the incredible Mr. Limpet, with the great Don Knotts being turned into an animated fish. Wouldn't it have been interesting if they had gone ahead and done that remake starring Jim Carrey? But they never did. Celebrating 50 years, we have The 9 Lives of Fritz the Cat, a film so bad that even Ralph Bakshi had his name taken off of it. Celebrating 40 years, we have Boggy, the Monster of Mighty Nature by the great Osamu Tezuka. We have Lensman, an anime version of the science fiction stories by E. Doc Smith. And we have The Muppets Take Manhattan. Celebrating 30 years, we have Felidae, a murder mystery starring cats. We have The Lion King, which launched 1 million fandoms. We have The Page Master, featuring anthropomorphic books. Pompoko, which is a non-Hayao Miyazaki film out of Studio Ghibli. And we have The Swan Princess. Celebrating 20 years in 2024, we have Clifford's Really Big Movie, Dragons, Fire and Ice, Garfield the Movie, Home on the Range, Kangaroo Jack, Good Day USA, The Lion King 1.5, Mickey, Donald, and Goofy starring in The Three Musketeers, Shark Tale, Shrek 2, which won the Ursa Major Award that year, by the way, The SpongeBob SquarePants Movie, Teacher's Pet, and Winnie the Pooh, Springtime with Roo. And celebrating 10 years in 2024, Deep Breath, Beyond Beyond, The Brox Trolls, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Equestria Girls, Rainbow Rocks, Guardians of the Galaxy, which won the Ursa Major Award, How to Train Your Dragon 2, The Lego Movie, Mr. Peabody and Sherman, Moon, Guardian of the Moon, Muppets Most Wanted, The Nut Job, Paddington, Penguins of Madagascar, Planes, Fire and Rescue, Rio 2, Satellite Girl and Milk Cow, The Snow Queen 2, Song of the Sea, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the one with the strange lips. So, let's look ahead to new films coming out in the year 2024. Interestingly, they have 23 of them that we have found so far. Feel free to put in the comments below if there's anything that we've missed that we should be looking at. First up, we have The Tiger's Apprentice, which is already premiered on Paramount+. This is an adaptation of a very well-known fantasy book series about a young man who is charged by the 12 animals of the Chinese zodiac to become their human champion. Specifically, the tiger is charged with training him with his newfound powers. Dragon Keeper is coming out from China very soon. It's the story of a young slave girl who manages to strike up a friendship with the last of the ancient dragons after they have been largely wiped out in China. And keeping with the Chinese theme, of course, we have Kung Fu Panda 4. My goodness, have we been waiting for this for a while. As you have probably seen, there's a new character in there, a fox played by Awkwafina. given that we're wondering about what happened to the Furious Five. They're not seen much in the trailers, but we like them, so we hope they're there. Giants of La Mancha is another interesting international film. It's a co-production between Argentina, Belgium, and Germany. Basically, a young boy and his imaginary friends, who are all musical rabbits, must save his small town from a giant storm which he believes is actually a black dragon. Coming out of nowhere, we have a new hybrid feature, Woody Woodpecker Goes to Camp, starring Eric Bauza once again as the voice of Woody Woodpecker, which he has been doing lately. There's your story right there in the title. Woody Woodpecker goes to a summer camp. Havoc ensues. Thelma the Unicorn is a fantasy film about an ordinary day-to-day pony who, through various means, gets transformed into a sparkly unicorn and becomes a musical superstar with all of the ups and downs thereof. Interestingly, one of the directors of the film was the director of the film Napoleon Dynamite. The Garfield movie, which is not the same as Garfield the movie. This is a remake starring Chris Pratt as our overweight orange cat friend. Boy, Mr. Pratt is getting around a lot. Interesting thing about this is this marks the return to directing of Mark Dindal, who is best known as the director of Cats Don't Dance and The Emperor's New Groove. We haven't heard from him for a while. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which I'm going to insist is way longer a title than necessary, but there it is. The latest in the most current Planet of the Apes genre of films. Another CGI and mocap film, this one mostly featuring apes more than humans in a far, far future where humans have returned to savagery and the apes are building a civilization with all that that involves. Robot Dreams is based on a very popular graphic novel. It actually came out in Europe in 2023, but it's set to come out in North America in 2024 this May. It's the story of a lonely dog living in a city who decides one day to build himself a robot companion, and they become very close together. Interesting thing, this film has no spoken dialogue. Inside Out 2, again, maybe stretching things a bit. Anthropomorphic emotions? Well, yes, that's what it's about. And of course, now Riley has passed puberty, so there's a whole new slew of emotions to come in. And as before, who knows, we may get surprised and find some more anthropomorphic characters than we thought of. The last one gave us Bing Bong. Despicable Me 4, what can you say? You either love the Minions or you don't love the Minions, but you know the film is going to make money hand over fist. And if you've seen the trailers, you know that this one features a honey badger. Don't ask me why, but there it is. Little Emma is another European film. It's a story of a miniature human with her non-human parents who goes on adventures. Don't know much about it, but it is supposed to be coming out next September. I've seen the trailers for it, and I will say that the lip sync on the dubbing is terrible, but the animation looks very nice. The Wild Robot is another adaptation of a novel. It's a story of a robot who finds herself, yes, it's a her, in a forested area on a deserted island, and so she makes friends with the local animals there and even helps to raise some of them. This one is directed by Chris Sanders, who is, of course, the director of Lilo and Stitch and the original How to Train Your Dragon. Sonic the Hedgehog 3. We knew this one was coming, and we're happy to say that most of the same actors from 2 are coming back for this one, okay? What can you say? You know what you're in for. Hello, Shadow. Mufasa, the Lion King. Basically, Simba looking back at his father's legacy and finding out more about his origin story. This one is in a similar style to the, quote, live-action Lion King, and it features many of the same actors as the live-action Lion King. You may or may not be excited about that. So those are the films we know are coming out in a particular time. There's several other films that are not yet given release dates, but they are supposed to be coming our way in 2024. That includes films like The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie, which basically Porky and Daffy versus aliens. What more can you say? Fixed is Sony Animation's first R-rated film, directed by none other than Genndy Tartakovsky of Hotel Transylvania and, of course, Samurai Jack. Basically, a dog finds out that he's going to be fixed the following day, so he decides to take his friends out on a mad spree for his last evening of fun. Hit Pig is based on a story by Burke Breathed of Bloom County fame. It stars Peter Dinklage as, you guessed it, a hit pig who is charged with protecting rather than getting rid of a famous performing elephant. The Inseparables already came out in France, but it's supposed to be dubbed and put to North America in 2024. It's a story of a runaway puppet and a left-behind teddy bear having adventures in the midst of New York City. Night of the Zoopocalypse, story of zoo animals versus mutant zombies. Another meteorite from space creating problems. This one was directed by people who were involved with The Incredibles and Ferdinand, so they have some good genes behind them. Spellbound we've been waiting for a while. It's the second film from Skydance, which previously brought us Luck. Again, we're presuming that Spellbound is going to be coming to Apple TV+. We just don't know exactly when. It's a story of a young girl who has to use her magical powers to save her family from an evil wizard. And, of course, lots and lots of magical creatures get involved in the spree. And finally, there's an upcoming Wallace and Gromit movie, which at the moment is simply referred to as Wallace and Gromit. In it, Gromit has decided that Wallace is becoming addicted to his inventions, particularly when Wallace creates one that can think and doesn't seem to realize the danger involved in that. This is going to be the first Wallace and Gromit film not to feature the great Peter Sallis as the voice of Wallace, as he has unfortunately passed away. So there you have it. Films from 2023, films from 2024. Remember, visit www.ursamajораwards.org to find out about how to nominate and how to vote for the Ursa Major Awards. And we'll see you again in 2025 to look back at 2024. Be safe.